Hey guys, so first I want to thank Roli for partnering with me on this. We're actually going to be giving away one of these Songmaker kits, which includes the Seaboard block and the Lightpad and the control unit for the Lightpad. So make sure you watch to the end of the video, and we're going to be giving away one for free. You got your Seaboard block, which is kind of like the Grand or the Rise that Roli also sell, except there's less keys. Now, if you don't even know what the Grand of the Rise are or what the block does, it's basically like a keyboard. But the thing about it that I really love, and I really mean this, is that as a piano player, you're kind of limited with your expressivity in terms of what you can do with a note. Unlike a trumpet or a violin or a flute or any string or wind instrument, um, or I should say any bowed string, or anything percussive like a piano is a percussion instrument. You're kind of limited to what you can do. When you play a note on a piano, once you've hit that note, there's not really anything you can do to further express the note. Whereas on a trumpet, you can get louder and then softer, or you can start to growl with it. There's a lot of things you can do with other instruments. And with keyboards, with electronic keyboards, we have pitch bends and mod wheels, so we can, with the pitch bend, obviously we can change the pitch, and with the mod wheel, we can affect different parameters. But it's still, not quite there. Like with a violin, for example, it's very easy to do, a slide into a note to do a glissando, um, or to have portamento, and you aren't able to do that on a keyboard instrument without the pitch bend. But the pitch bend is very limited because you only can have one set amount of portamento or glissando per instance. Whereas with one of my favorite things about the block is that I was kind of playing it with like four voices, so two fingers each hand, and I like that you can slide different amounts per finger, which like it has been impossible to you'd have to do that one at a time in a computer, drawing it out, and now you can just do it on the fly. Another thing about the block that I love is you can do vibrato with it, which again you would have to use a pitch bend to do that before, and the amount of vibrato would be the same on a chord, or because it would be affecting the pitch bend wheel would be affecting everything, versus here I can have different amounts of vibrato just by how each one of my fingers shake on the keyboard, which is again insanely cool. Like this has never been possible before in human history on the fly, so that's really cool. So there's so by moving up and down like you guys saw me do in the video, like that affects the pitch. So that's the portamento or glissando, depending on how far you're going. Wiggling on a note is the vibrato. But there's also I would say this is akin to, like, up and down on a note, I would say is akin to like the mod wheel. But again, now each note you can have like a mod wheel per note. So instead of having a global mod wheel control everything, certain notes can swell and certain notes can, go get a little more subdued, or whatever the parameters are that you're modulating. The last thing that I think is really cool is it has like, it's kind of like Aftertouch, but it's way better than Aftertouch. Aftertouch has always kind of sucked, and this is way better than Aftertouch. Is as you've already pressed a note, you can push it harder or like go mid press, which again you've never been able to do on a piano, minus certain keyboards that have this thing called Aftertouch. But Aftertouch on keyboards has kind of always really sucked. So this is one of the coolest keyboard experiences I've ever had. There's a trade-off. I feel like it's a little bit more difficult to play like virtuosic things, but that's not an issue for me because I feel like I'm kind of looking at this as like its own thing, and maybe that's not the purpose, is to play incredibly virtuosic things. Because on a piano, sure you could, but you don't have the expressiveness of this. So I feel like this is probably for more melodic passages for passages that are more ethereal, or just, cantabile, or, just anything that is more expressive, basically. I really think you can do some really great things with the Seaboard block. So, and plus, also, one thing that I've kind of discovered for myself is that I kind of like being limited in terms of what I can do, because I feel like it kind of puts you in this creative box that, for example, like I learned to play the ocarina, and the ocarina only has an octave and a half of just range. And, being used to the piano having 88 notes of range, you'd think that would be terrible, but actually, and you can only play one note at a time on the ocarina, but I actually loved it because, it, like I said, it forces you to pick the right notes to play, and you don't have, harmony to, make it sound, more interesting. You don't have range to make it sound more interesting. You're really limited, and I really like that. So I actually like the fact that I'm limited in terms of dexterity on this, but it makes up for it in expressiveness and tone. And similar to the ocarina, I think it makes up for it in expressiveness and tone. Or any, wind instrument. The trumpet doesn't have the same range as the piano, but boy, is it more expressive. You know what I mean? So that's what the Seaboard block can do. And they have some really great sounds that you can use with the Seaboard block. There's strobe has some really great stuff, and my favorite one is actually Equator that they give you. It just tons and tons and tons of cool sounds right out the get-go that come already pre-mapped to all these ways that you can be expressive with your block. If I had this before I was done with the Boneworks soundtrack, I would have totally used it all over Boneworks. The only downside, and it's not a downside on Roli's part, is certain DAWs don't have this implemented yet. So, for example, I use FL. It's not implemented yet, so I can't use this in FL natively. But what I have been doing since I've had this, and what I feel like I will be doing in the future, which I'm totally fine with, and I'll explain why, because I had to do the same thing on the Boneworks soundtrack, is I just routed Equator or Cypher or Strobe into my interface and recorded them like a guitar. I did the same thing on the whole Boneworks soundtrack. I used the mini log. So I'm kind of treating this as an analog synth and routing it in like a guitar or like a microphone, just because, again, this isn't Roli's fault. But if you have Ableton or Logic or Cubase, all these other DAWs, just check the website, see if your DAW is fully compatible. Then you'll have no issue using the block natively within your DAW to control your favorite synths. But again, that's not an issue for me because the sounds that they come with are so freaking good already that I'm totally fine with routing this in externally. There's also the Lightpad, and the Lightpad has a lot of really cool functionality. There's right now I have it set in the XYZ pad mode, so it's kind of like a chaos pad, so you can kind of automate different parameters on an X, Y, and Z. So X, going this way, left to right, Y going up and down, and then Z in terms of the velocity at which you press down on this. So there's that. You can use it as a mixer, and mixing different channels. You can use it as a pad controller like the Launchpad. There's a note grid, kind of like how the Launchpad has the note mode, and so you can use different. It'll it will automatically set itself to the scale that you set it to. And then there's all these other different apps. There's like an app that makes it an arpeggiator. There's apps you can use to control Logic or GarageBand or Ableton. It works natively with melodics. And funnily enough, it also has like, Alien Invaders type like arcade games that you can play, right in the blocks natively, and so that's actually, I've never seen, I'm pretty sure there's like mods for some other pads, but like, I just lost because I wasn't looking, but natively built into it, I've never seen that before on a controller. So there's that one. There's one that's it's like break blocks. I forget what the old school game. It's kind of like Pong and Tetris. I forget what it's actually called, but and there's more apps you can download, by the way. Um, so this guy, in terms of functionality, there's a ton of apps that you can use that are, you know, besides the game ones that actually are for playing and making music. My favorite thing for this is the XYZ pad, kind of like a Chaos pad. And then the control unit just controls different parameters of the light block. Um, Whether it's, you know, in art mode or whether you have it set to um, the different scales, or, you know, there's a whole bunch of different functionality with the control unit. So in order to win one of these guys, what I need you to do is I need you to follow me on Instagram, and I'm going to post a photo on Instagram, and this is the photo that I'm going to post, and I just need you to leave a comment on that photo, just like we did the Launchpad giveaway. And this time Roli is actually going to be facilitating the giveaway. The reason for that is because when I did the Launchpad giveaway, that wasn't sponsored by, you know, I mean, it was sponsored in part by DistroKid, but I still paid, you know, my own money to make that happen. And I let that be open to everywhere in the world. And we had, if I remember correctly, 2 winners in the UK, 1 in Spain, and 1 in France. And I got them all safely delivered to everybody but the person in France, because somebody stole his Launchpad from his porch or where he receives his mail, which really sucks. So if you see somebody walking around with a Launchpad that has my signature on the back that isn't one of those guys, then kick his butt, because he's a thief. And I felt really bad, but I've kind of learned my lesson now, in the sense that and now I see why a lot of companies don't do international, because I like went to the, you know, the UPS and I USPS, and I was like, you know, like, I paid money for the, like, what are you going to do about it? And they're like, well, we can't really do anything about it because we made sure it got out of the country, and it's the fault of the French government. So, you know, take it up with them. And so what am I supposed to do about that? So Roli is actually been facilitating this, and so they're going to do a way better job than I am. You know, but again, like, 3 out of the 4 people got it, but I'm sorry that one got stolen. But that's all you got to do. Also, there's a link to this product in the description, so you got to make sure you click that link as well and just check out the product page. Again, I want to say thank you to Roli for making this happen. You know, anytime that I can help you guys out, and you know, I know that you guys are going to have a ton of fun with this, especially the person that receives this. I know you're going to have a ton of fun with this. So anytime I can help you guys out and you know, do something like that, I love to, because, you know, I really think it'll make a difference in somebody's life. So so I'll see you guys in the next video. And again, I want to say a huge thank you to Roli.